Crystalline silica is a naturally occurring material made up of soil, sand, granite, and many other minerals. Quartz is the most common form of silica. It is a component of sand, stone, rock, concrete, brick, block, and mortar. To protect ourselves and those working around us, we must comply with OSHA's crystalline silica standard. This new standard reduces the previous permissible exposure limit for respirable crystalline silica from 250 to 50 micrograms averaged over an 8-hour work shift. Crystalline silica health hazards. Overexposure to respirable crystalline silica particles can lead to serious, sometimes fatal, illnesses including silicosis, lung cancer, tuberculosis, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. In addition, silica exposure has been linked to other illnesses including kidney disease and other cancers. Silicosis is a progressive disease and there is no cure upon its onset. Thus, minimizing your exposure to respirable crystalline silica is the key to prevention. Crystalline silica is now a known listed carcinogen, a substance or agent causing cancer. Symptoms of silicosis. Silicosis is caused by silica dust entering the lungs, causing the formation of scar tissue, thus reducing the lungs' ability to take in oxygen. Silicosis is classified into 3 types: chronic, accelerated, and acute. Chronic silicosis. The most common occurs after 15 to 20 years of moderate to low exposure to respirable crystalline silica. Symptoms associated with chronic silicosis may or may not be obvious. Therefore, workers need to have a chest x-ray to determine if there is lung damage. As the disease progresses, the worker may experience shortness in breath upon exercising and have clinical signs of poor oxygen-carbon dioxide exchange. In later stages, the worker may experience fatigue, extreme shortness of breath, chest pain, or respiratory failure. Accelerated silicosis occurs after 5 to 10 years of high exposures to respirable crystalline silica. Symptoms include severe shortness of breath, weakness, and weight loss. The onset of symptoms takes longer than in acute silicosis. Acute silicosis occurs after a few months or as long as 2 years, following exposures to extremely high concentrations of respirable crystalline silica. Symptoms of acute silicosis include severe, disabling shortness of breath, weakness, and weight loss, which often leads to death. Job tasks. KCI performs heavy concrete work, poured in place or precast, associated with buildings, building foundations, exterior facade, bridges, roadways, and parking garages. Activities include drilling, coring, cutting, machined and hand demolition, and replacement of concrete. Associated with this work, the following tasks are routinely or periodically performed. Briefly review the tasks and the summary of control measures. Tasks that must be done using water for dust control. Concrete sawing and cutting with handheld chop saws. Walk-behind saws. Soft cutting green concrete. Concrete removal with pneumatic hammers. Machine demolition of concrete. Must have water and isolation for the equipment operator. Soil and/or rock hauling and backfilling. Sweeping streets. Hand brooming and sweeping. Tasks that must be done using vacuum systems for dust control. Concrete chipping or bush hammering, drilling into concrete using handheld or stand-mounted drills, and grinding on flat surfaces. Tasks requiring isolation and respiratory protection. Concrete patching, sack mixing and patching, shotcrete, and sandblasting. Control measures. To control the silica hazard associated with our job tasks, we must be specific in what controls we will use. Below is a list of control measures KCI will use to protect our workers from crystalline silica. Wet methods. Wet surfaces or equipment with a water delivery system designed to deliver water at the cutting or grinding surface. The water flow rate must be sufficient to prevent any visible dust. Ventilation. Local exhaust ventilation systems capture dust at the source and are very efficient when designed for the tool or equipment. HEPA or high efficiency filters must be used to prevent redistribution of dust. Enclosed areas. Enclosed cabs on vehicles and equipment provide a barrier separating the worker from the dust source. The enclosure must have airtight seals and gaskets, functioning doors and closing mechanisms, and be under positive air pressure with temperature control. Respirators. Respirators will be provided to employees who are exposed to silica dust with an actionable exposure level of 25 micrograms per cubic meter of air. For example, Table 1 states that employees using a jackhammer or handheld power chipping tool outdoors 4 hours per shift or more, respiratory protection is required, at least an N95 filtering mask. KCI has chosen to maintain use of full-face respirators for these exposures. Employees may view Table 1 and the KCI Construction Silica Exposure Control Program for additional information. For additional questions regarding exposure and controls, contact the job site superintendent competent person, the KCI Safety Director, Matt Willingham, or Safety Manager, Mike Benner. Employees may also visit OSHA's website for additional information. Medical surveillance. Initially and every 3 years thereafter, those who wear a respirator for more than 30 days a year will undergo medical surveillance, receiving chest x-ray, pulmonary function testing, and tuberculosis evaluation. Note, workers who will be wearing a respirator will need to be clean shaven, complete a medical evaluation, and the fit testing process before a respirator is issued and worn. We are in a period of testing and verification of controls. Additional respiratory protection over what is required in OSHA's Table 1 will be required during this time. One measurement for successfully minimizing exposure and achieving compliance with the standard is there should be no visible dust during any silica exposure activity.